Okay. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Bluewater Cruising podcast. We are here today with Scott and Kara, another couple who have been out cruising, another family. We met you guys, what, two years ago now, almost? I don't even remember what it was. Maybe roughly around 2 years ago. Came through one of our programs, and you guys have been out cruising, just finished the cruising season, which is super amazingly exciting. I think that was mostly on the East Coast of the United States, if I'm not mistaken. But we'll get into the details of that. And you guys are doing things a little bit differently, which I'm actually excited to have a chat about today. You're not cruising full time. You're kind of haven't sold everything. I'm sure you're going to get into the details. And it's just a different way to live the cruising lifestyle, which I think is amazing. And for those of you listening, it could be a good example or an option that there's so many different ways to go about doing this. There's no one size fits all, and it's really up to you. It's like a blank slate for how you want to create it and make it work for you. So anyway, I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. Scott and Kara, excited to have you guys here. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Thanks for having us. So Scott and Kara Fetters, we started this dream like everybody else, wanting to own a boat and go explore exotic places and meet new people and see things. And that was a huge part of it for us, was the people and cultures and things like that. We had traveled extensively before we had a boat, but we wanted to dive more into it, I guess, and see, get immersed more into cultures. We both own our own businesses, and we both still have our own businesses, and we've worked hard to get people in place to help us run these businesses. So we are still working full time, if that's what you call it. But trying to take advantage while we can to be out cruising while we can still do it and that kind of thing. So a little bit of a different scenario. We didn't, like you said, Chris, we didn't sell everything. We're still trying to maintain what we have and still partake in the lifestyle.
Cool. There's a lot of stuff there to dive into, and I want to dive into a lot of it. To maybe back up to what you kind of opened up with there, which is you've been dreaming about this for a while, and it was something that you guys wanted to do. Where did the idea come from originally? Like, how'd you get the idea? A lot of people think it's crazy, to go buy a boat and start sailing it around places and cruising. So where did that crazy idea come from?
We actually were scuba diving in the Bahamas in the Exumas, and we kept seeing all these people living on boats. And so we're asking, like, what is going on? How does this work? We are from Colorado. Nobody lives on a boat in Colorado. It's not even a thing. Nobody even would understand what that is. So we were just really enthralled with, how does this work? And I was, just kind of looking around, and we asked our dive master, how does this work? These people live on these boats. And he said, oh yeah, they sail down here and they spend, the season, and then sometimes they go back to the US and sometimes they go down to the Caribbean. And so we were just sort of amazed at this, and we started talking to people. And then the thing that really, I guess, put the light bulb on for us, I saw a guy in a dinghy with his golden retriever, and we have golden retriever and we love dogs. And I just thought, oh my gosh, you can actually do this with a dog. Who knew that was even possible? So we started just chatting people up and asking them their story. And we met a couple. We were sitting at the chat and chill, hanging out, having a click. And we met this couple. They had just recently retired, and he was an accountant. And so I said, I want to have a conversation about the budget. How does this work? How did you make this happen? And he was so kind. And they sat down with us and talked to us for probably almost an hour about how they made it work. And he, of course, as an accountant, had a budget and told me how much they spend every day and how much the boat cost. And it was very educational. So that was kind of how we got going with this. And then we just started learning more about, sailing, because we had never even thought about that. And then we started, recognizing, okay, we're going to have to learn how to do this. So then we started taking our classes and went through the whole process.
Okay. And how long, like, would you say, from when you had the original idea of, oh, it'd be kind of cool to buy a boat and start living this way for a period of time until you executed and actually were out doing it?
It was about 5 years.
Yeah, it's probably about 5 years from when we first said, like, hey, this would be kind of a neat thing. And then, okay. And then, it's kind of a year of talking about it probably. And then, okay, well, let's start looking at, and then we went on more vacations, more dive trips, and saw more boats out there.
Yeah.
So every time we come back from a dive trip, it was like, oh, okay, well, there's it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So we started looking into it a lot more and got, much more serious about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we started looking for boats even a couple years before we bought one.
Yes.
Just to know what's out there, and see what's out there. And we'd never bought a boat like that before. So, just to see what was out there and do some research and, that kind of thing. So it was at least 5 years before we actually dove into it then.
And you did a program with us, right? I think it was when we used to run what was called the Confuse the Captain program. Is that right?
Yeah, we were in your very first class.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were in the very first class, Confuse the Captain.
You were in the very first class.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we were in
You're
the
in the very
one.
first one. Okay, I didn't realize that actually. Amazing. That's fantastic. Okay, it's changed a lot since then. So that would have been like 2 years ago then, basically, that you guys did that with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of middle of the way to making this happen. You hopped on that and
we had taken our ASA classes prior to that, and we had gone to the Annapolis boat show and looked at a bunch of boats just to see what was out there. We went to the Miami boat show, looked at, just checking everything out. We did some charters in different places, and we just were like, okay, we got to figure this out. Our issue, we knew we wanted to do it. Our issue was, how can we make it happen? And how are we going to extract ourselves from our crazy lives and start working towards the dream logistically?
Yeah. Oh man. Cause that's the big piece. I think a lot of people, it's like one of our taglines things we say is the sailing. And I'd be curious on your thoughts on this is the how to sail piece is like 10% of the logistics you need to figure out to get out actually cruising. And we don't even really focus on the how to sail piece because it's so small.
I would agree with that. I mean, the time that we've spent doing everything else, just getting everything ready and preparing and making things happen, I think was significantly more than the actual sailing part. And like you said before, cruising 90% of the time, you're at anchor or on a mooring ball or not actually sailing. So yes.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously you need to know how to sail.
Yeah.
But you can learn that. And it can be trial by fire. But you learn how to deal with that kind of stuff. The bigger stuff is the grand scheme of things. And sailing, I think sailing's a fairly small part of it. It's more about the lifestyle, I think, than the actual sailing. I mean, you still have motors. You can just motor sail if you want to. It's fine. You can get to where you want to go. It's learning how to deal with everything else, I think, is the big part.
And you'd mentioned, we were talking offline a little bit here about expectations and, when you say everything else in the lifestyle, in my mind, what comes to mind immediately is like what you don't know that you don't know. And setting expectations around this when it comes to the lifestyle. Cause I think for me, that's the biggest thing. And it's a bit of a weird thing even to say, like, people talk, oh, I'm going to go sailing. You're like, look, it's not about sailing. You want to go sailing, but it's not actually about sailing. It's about, can you adapt to the lifestyle? is what it's really about, I think, for me. And a big part of that is expectation. So I'd like to kind of dig into that a bit. And I think I want to start with like, what did you guys want to create? You know, because it's, to me, cruising is a bit of a blank slate. You can do it however you want. And what was it that you wanted to create with it? Like, what was, yeah, if that makes sense.
Well, like Scott said earlier, we love to travel and we've gone lots of different places. And what we realize is we like to go to off the beaten path places, where you don't just come in as a tourist, but you actually get in and meet the local people and you get to experience the culture and just really enjoy the lifestyle of wherever you are. And we thought this would be the best way to do that, is not, flying on a plane and stay in a big resort where you may or may not actually meet anybody that doesn't work at that resort. We like to get in and see how the local people actually live. And we've done quite a bit of volunteer work in lots of different developing countries. And, just by doing that, we just have learned that we really, really enjoyed the people, the culture. And this just seemed like the best way to do that for us. And so we're planners and we tried really hard, to step by step figure this out. We took your course. We try to learn as much as we can, but there's no way to really believe that you think you have everything ready and you think you've gone through every single system and you've done every single thing and you're prepared and you're going to go out there and it's just going to be smooth. And that's not the case.
Well, and when Cara talks about our travels and where we've been, like we've been to some pretty remote places, and the volunteer work we do. Cara's an optometrist,
Okay.
and we do eye clinics. We do eye clinics all over the world for people that she heads up and brings all these people in. So I mean, we've been to like some pretty cool places. But pretty remote places to do that. And that sparks us a lot. And, that's actually another big thing with our boat, because, we are planning to take sunglasses and reading glasses and, these things to these remote areas to be able to give them out to people, that need them. And that's kind of a side note, but, when she says we've traveled a lot of places, that's a lot of what our travel has been. So, giving back to some of those communities and helping people is also part of our dream. So
I don't know if that's the side note. It sounds like it's a big part of the note. If it's
I
don't know if I'd side note it. That's super cool. And I like that you brought that up, because I think it's like, and I want to kind of get into where you're at with this now and how this is panning out for you. But what I found is, people get into this lifestyle, and this is why I'm super curious about the way you guys are doing it, because a lot of people, like some people can go so far as what we could call like they burn the boats on the beach, not their literal boat, but like the way they were living, sell everything, get out and get into the cruising lifestyle. And the cruising lifestyle is a lot of work. Like it's not beaches, it's not beaches, beers and bikinis, or maybe that's even a bit far. It's not like, it's not YouTube. It's not what you see on YouTube. There's a lot beneath the surface. And I've seen a lot of people that they'll last a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then they're done. And I think the other part of that is there's no deeper purpose to what they're doing when they're out cruising. So I'm curious about this idea that you have around combining what you're doing now with cruising in a sense. It sounds like that's what you're talking about. And I'm curious to see where it goes for you, I suppose, is what I'm saying, because it's like, I think that's what you need to keep going, and there needs to be something deeper driving it. And I see that with like, for example, Keith, he's got the YouTube channel, and there's some deeper purpose there that's keeping them going. If it's just about the sailing and exploration, it's great, but it gets old. people probably don't want to hear me say that, but it's the truth. It gets old in a matter of time. So that's super cool to hear. Can you so you had this idea to do this, and then you have this whole other part of it. You want to get out to remote communities. You have the boat now, right? You guys have bought the boat. What kind of boat did you get?
We have a Leopard 44.
A Leopard 44. Amazing. Okay. And so tell me a little bit about, before we go too deep into that, I want to talk a little bit about, your idea here was not to sell everything. You guys didn't sell everything. You're still maintaining the businesses. And so what was the inclination to do it that way? Why did you decide you wanted to keep doing that? And then what were the variables? Obviously, finance is another one. Finances are one of them. I'm assuming time. What are the variables you've had to juggle to make that work?
Yeah, we're not quite ready to retire yet. And we wanted to do this. We didn't want to wait. We want to live our dream. So we just had to figure out a way to make it happen now so we can still do both. So we have hired people and worked really hard to put everybody in place so that our businesses are still running. We're still managing things, but not doing as much day to day, but overseeing everything. But I still have to be in my office 1 week a month to see patients. So right now I fly back from wherever we are. So this season we were in the Florida Keys, the Dry Tortugas, and just went all the way up the Gulf Coast back to where we keep our boat in Texas. So I could just fly back. So I flew back from, Fort Myers, and then once from Pensacola, just depending upon where we were. We just knew on this week I have to be back in Colorado to see my patients. And so we just made that work. And Scott, you have kind of a similar situation, except he can do more things remotely. He doesn't have to really go back. He's got things set up so that he can just kind of oversee everything.
I don't have patience to see.
So, what business are you in, Scott?
I have a granite countertop and cabinet and flooring business.
Okay.
So we do all the sales and manufacturing of some of that stuff. So I spent, the last several years getting people in place. I've got an amazing right-hand man that helps me out with so many things. He does a fantastic job for me, and I still do some things remotely, obviously, business management and that kind of thing, but I am able to kind of stay, more remote than Cara does. I don't necessarily have to be in the office like she has to, obviously, to see her patients.
See the patients.
So yeah, it was, but that was a big hurdle for us. It took us a long time. That's part of the reason it's been 5 years, because it took us that long to get everything kind of, set up to be comfortable to do that. I mean, when you run businesses for 25 years almost, you don't just walk away from them, so, that was a big thing, and we're both very fortunate that we found awesome people. Without them, it'd be very difficult or probably impossible. So we're very fortunate that we found the people that we did.
That's super cool. I think it's super inspiring. I think it'll be inspiring for a lot of people listening, because I know there's people that struggle with this question of, okay, I'm running a business. Do I just exit and go, or do I try and keep it going? And there's a cost both ways. I suppose it's a matter of weighing what's better for you. But it's cool. It's cool that you can make it work. Like so you were able to fly out 1 week a month and fly back, do your work, and then come back to the boat. And it was totally manageable.
Yeah, it was, easy to do when you're in the US. The next season we're going to be in the Bahamas, so it'll be fine. We just know that we have to be close to an airport at a certain time, which having a schedule is not always great, and the weather does not always cooperate. And that was something that you hear all the time, and that, but somehow in your mind, it just
Yeah.
The weather was, you know.
Well,
Somehow in your
even on our trip, we had there was a time where we're like, okay, nope, we got to skip this and cut across the Gulf, and we didn't go to some places that we wanted to go, because Cara had to get back, for work, and it was just storms were coming in, and that's the way it was.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, you try to keep a loose schedule, but you have to be a certain place at a certain time to fly out. I mean, we couldn't book her plane ticket until right before she was going to go home, because we weren't sure where we were going to be. So
yeah.
But
And
we made it work.
I mean, those are all super valuable things to be thinking about if you want to do what you guys are doing. There's Starlink has changed the world in the sense of being able to work from the boat now. But if you have to leave and you do have a schedule you have to leave on, it's super important to be aware of these things. And I think, like you said, a lot of people get into it and they think, yeah, the weather, yeah, but they don't really realize, no, the weather is the sole dictating factor of your life on the ocean, and everything else is subordinate to that.
Yes.
So yeah, well, and everything changes. I mean, we woke up outside of Clearwater, Florida, right? Is that where we were? And we were like, wow, look at the storm coming in. We need to get you somewhere where you can fly home, and we weren't planning on, we were actually planning on going up to like Crystal River and some other places. But anyway, we ended up cutting straight across the Gulf, and we were going to go to Panama City and Destin, and the storm was coming in, and there wasn't great places for us to go there. So we ended up heading all the way down to Pensacola and, getting there for a little bit. And it just, and we all of a sudden we find ourselves on a 3-day crossing or 2.5-day crossing when we woke up that morning and weren't planning to do that, so.
Right.
But
here we are.
It was fine. And then we got to Pensacola and we had 40-knot winds. So, it was the right decision. And that's, it's what you have to do sometimes. Yeah. So.
Cool. I'm looking forward to hearing more about how this goes for you and how you guys manage it moving further afield. It's definitely doable. I mean, I know people that do it. It's once again, I think it slightly changes the way that you can cruise, having to do that, but you can still be out there doing it, which is amazing. So unless you get a helicopter, then you can kind of go wherever you want.
Yeah, that's next time.
Yeah,
right. But we made it happen this year. It's better than not going, right? Like
all day long.
So we definitely made it happen. And I think we'll get not only better at it, but also our plan is that we're gonna our times of having to be around are all gonna go down as well.
We're not shrink.
Gonna have to be there as much. So hopefully, by the time if we do Bahamas next year, is still doable, I think. Totally. Then after that, then it's another reevaluation of what's going to happen. So
yeah, I think you could do the whole Caribbean on having to be gone 1 week a month. Like it just takes a little bit of planning, but I think you could totally do it if you wanted to. Yeah, especially, because you can just sit around somewhere like the BVI's or St. Martin once you get there. The problem is just getting there, right? You got to plan the trip to get out there. Yeah. Then once you get there, you sit around the BVI's for 2 months or 3 months, or the USVI's or St. Martin, and they're just great places to hang out. So that'd be super cool. And the Bahamas, I mean, even the Bahamas, the Exumas, you can hang out there for months too. They're amazing.
So, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So much fun. Cool. So tell me a bit about the Leopard, the boat. Why that particular boat? How did that all come together? Why did you choose that boat, and how do you like it? And how's it been getting it ready and cruising it?
Well, that's your story, because she was addicted to Yacht World and some other.
Well, we chartered, some different boats, and we really, really liked the Leopard with the forward cockpit. And it just, I don't know, every time we looked at anything else, we just kind of kept coming back to that. And then we were just sort of searching, and yeah, we found it in Puerto Rico. So our very first sail on our boat was from Puerto Rico to Texas, 1,800 nautical miles.
Yeah. That's baptism by fire.
Yeah, it was a blast, actually.
Yeah, it was really actually a wonderful, really fun trip.
It was a good trip. Amazing. Did you do it with a captain, or did you do it on your own?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had a friend of ours we had Cara's dad actually came with us, and then we had another friend of ours that, it was funny. We actually told him we bought the boat, and he said, "Oh, so I guess I need to come help you move it then." He never sailed before in his life, but he's just like, "I want to go.
I'm going." So, that's so awesome.
Yeah, and he loved it. He loved it. It was really cool. And then we had a friend of ours that is a captain experience, so he came along with us too and helped us. So yeah.
Okay.
It was great, but.
And prior to that, we had only done, island hopping. The longest sail probably we'd ever done was maybe 5 hours. So to jump in and do overnight, that many days overnight, way offshore, I wasn't even sure if I was going to like it, but it was actually wonderful. And Andy, the captain, our friend who came with us, is also a really good fisherman. So we caught tons of fish. We caught mahi and tuna and all kinds of stuff. So that made it really fun too, because we were reeling in fish like 3 times a day. It was great.
Perfect. Do you have a dive compressor on the boat?
We do not have a dive compressor. We have tanks on it. We actually added a scuba rack and some tanks. So, our idea was we'll just fill them up, at, shore or whatever. But unfortunately, when we moved the boat, it was a point A to point B thing. We didn't really stop and do stuff. We bought it and had to get it out of the marina, obviously. Mm-hmm. And then this was before we were set up with, work and everything. So we actually bought the boat and then took like a year since from when we had the boat to get everything kind of finalized to be able to go. So during that year, that's part of the reason we moved the boat to Texas, because from Colorado, we can fly down to Houston, Texas on a direct flight and get to the boat and then go, sail the Texas coast and, that kind of thing. Versus having it in Florida is very difficult for us in Colorado to get to Florida and have, be able to do that. So that's why we
short increments. When we only have, a long weekend, we didn't have nearly as much time off then. We were just trying to figure all that out. So we could literally fly down for a long weekend and then have to go back.
Plus Florida is way more expensive than Texas too.
Yes.
Oh yeah, way more. And it's from the Keys to Kemah, Texas, where we are, is a 6-day sail. But everything's much more affordable there to dock your boat. The marina fees to fix things. Everything else. So then we spent like a year just. Yeah, we spent like a year just upgrading some things,
we added a bunch of different stuff,
doing some stuff, and then we just went down there and sailed the coast for a while, and that kind of thing. So, and then actually the boat's now back in the same place. So
cool,
taking off from there again.
I like too that you, like you said, you bought it, and then there was this year that you kind of got yourselves ready and the boat ready. And I love that too, because I think, again, back to this expectations thing, there's an expectation I hear a lot. People are like, "Oh, I'm going to buy a boat and go." And I don't know anybody that's successfully happened with, where they just like buy a boat, get on it and go, including myself. I mean, I tried that and it was like, no, that doesn't work. You gotta have some time to get yourself ready and the boat ready. And it's one of the things we often say now is like, it's like the more time that you allow, it doesn't make sense to try and time the boat purchase. It's like, just buy the boat when you're ready to buy the boat. And if it's going to be a year before you get going, it's going to be a year. If it's going to be 6 months, if it's going to be 18 months, like whatever it is, then it's like these building blocks to get going. And I love that you did that. I mean, it makes sense. You said you're planners. So I can see the pieces of the plan coming together, which is cool. Mm-hmm. You also said, though, despite all of the planning, there are some things that it's unavoidable. You're going to run into things you didn't expect, no matter how much you plan. What are some of those things that you guys ran into, just out of curiosity?
So we left. We were on our boat for like 2 months before we left. Right? Like 2 months, almost 2 months.
This season, yes.
This season, like almost 2 months. And we did just a lot of maintenance to make sure everything was good and all that. I had the dinghy motor serviced at the dealership. Like, I didn't do it myself. I had them do a bunch of work to it and everything else. Just everything we could think of. And part of the reason we were on the boat for 2 months is because we were planning to leave from Texas to Key West like January 10th. And we didn't, the weather in the Gulf was terrible. So we actually didn't get our weather window until January 29th to leave. So we had all this extra time, and so when we left, we were like, we're good to go,
Yeah, we went through every single system. We thought we had everything in order.
Yeah, so we did all that, did all the maintenance on everything that we needed to do. First thing that happened is a dinghy motor quit working, and it's a 2-stroke. It was a 25 horsepower 2-stroke Yamaha, which I was like, this thing is awesome, but had carburetor issues on it, had a bunch of issues with it that is not easy to deal with on the boat. You can't just take the thing off and put it in a barrel and, make it work. And so we messed with that for a long time. Ended up that I just got so frustrated with it, we ended up buying a new 4-stroke motor with electric start because,
your shoulder was burnt out by that point.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, it's just like dealing with this thing. And Cara couldn't hardly start it anyway, trying to, she doesn't have the mass big motor to pull that motor. So I was like, all right, we're gonna get a 4-stroke and we're putting electric start in. So we ended up doing that. Our windlass went out on us. So we were.
Scott was pulling anchor chain by hand.
Hauling anchor chain by hand for a while.
That's terrible.
Yeah. Well, so that was an unintended. That was an unintended advantage of the Leopard 44 with the that front cockpit in it, because I could actually stand down in the cockpit and pull the chain like towards me, not straight up, But you still have. You don't want to get your hands in there, the danger of it's not a good thing.
And of course, the one that we need to replace it is in Italy.
Yeah,
and it's going to be 6 weeks before they can get it to us. So then we have to get a different one, and the size is different. So you got to put different. It's just nothing is going to happen straightforward and quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did that, and then the control box didn't fit in there right. So wait a minute. Anyway, we got that all done. Then our generator wouldn't hold prime, so the impeller change is super easy. That wasn't a big deal. but ever since then, it won't hold prime, and we had to, figure out a way around that. That's actually how we met Jack and Amy.
Yes.
I remember. Yeah. Because and then Jack helped you with that. Yeah, in Miami.
Yeah. We were talking about that in Miami, and Jack helped us with that.
I remember
that was awesome. Yeah, that was awesome. But
and that was the case.
It's still
not holding prime properly.
Yeah, we're still messing with that a little bit and figuring that out. But and the thing is all three of these things happened at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's the bummer part about it. So it's like, you kick my dog while you're here, because it's just one thing, it's just like, oh my gosh. So that's the hard part, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the flip side of that is our dinghy motor, for instance. It was running good enough to get us places. Sometimes. But we had problems with it one time, and we met this couple from Canada that were anchored by us, and they came over, and we were talking to them and everything else, and now we're great friends with them, because they would come over every day and be like, hey, you guys need a ride into town, or
they kind of adopted us.
Yeah.
Stopped over every morning to see if we wanted to go to shore, which we did, and then they let us and our dog all climb in their dinghy, and they had their 2 dogs, and so we overloaded their poor little dinghy, and every day they took us to shore.
And they're awesome people,
kind people.
And if we didn't have the dinghy motor problems, maybe we would never have met Randy and Rose.
Probably.
I don't know, but we're super thankful we did. So it's kind of like you get or like Jack and Amy too. You get a punch in the gut, but then something really good happens out of it too. Sometimes, So you kind of have to. It's like an ebb and flow. You got to, you got to take it. So
and that's for me, that's the adaptation to the lifestyle piece. That's that approach that you just said there, that perspective, hey, something crappy happened, but, oh, hey, look at this great thing that happened as a result of that. And being able to let go of the crappy thing and see the good thing that came out of it is, if you can't do that, you don't make it in the cruising lifestyle, because there's crappy stuff happen all the time.
And it can be really crappy. It can be really crappy, and then it can be really great.
Yeah, high highs,
the next moment.
Right?
High highs, low lows. Yeah, exactly. Amazing. Well, I've seen your boat, because I sailed by it, anchored in the bay there in Miami. Yeah, because I was out on Martin and Hildren's boat, and we cruised by and saw Amy and Jack anchored, and then you guys were anchored behind them or in front of them, whatever way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. So amazing. That's exciting. Where did you guys go from Miami? Were you heading down to Texas or up the coast of Florida?
Well, we went from Texas to Key West. Well, we went from Texas to the Dry Tortugas, and then up to Key West, and then we worked our way up to Miami. Yeah, and then we were there. That's when we were having the windlass and the generator and the dinghy motor problem. And then after that, we worked our way back down through the tip of Key West, and then back up the Gulf side. So that was early on in our trip, actually.
Yeah, in the second week, I think all those things happened.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense. It's the test while you get going.
Right?
The boat's test. Totally the test. Cool. Amazing. And then so you're parked. The boat's parked in Texas for the hurricane season, I'm assuming, and then next season you guys want to take it out to the Bahamas. Is the plan?
That's the plan.
That's the plan.
Cool. So yeah, we talked about, so what you mentioned, I wanted to come back to one thing you guys mentioned, which was around this, why you decided to not sell everything. And you said that you were not ready to retire. I'm curious about that. Like, where is that coming from? What's the motivation behind that? Is it you just love what you guys do work-wise? You love the businesses you've created? Like, because I know a lot of people that are like, they run businesses and they're like, I'm going to sell the business. I can always start a new one. I want to go and do this. So I'm just curious as to, what the mindset is around that.
So we've actually talked about this a lot. We've talked about different scenarios, but I think first of all is we don't mind what we're doing. We actually we like what we're doing, and even when we are at home and we're working, it's not like, oh, I gotta go into the office again. We enjoy what we're doing. The other thing is like, I have guys that have worked with me for 15 years now, and I feel a little bit of a responsibility, or maybe not responsibility, but I want to keep it going and maybe pass some things along to them. And we're also very fortunate because we both found great people to help us do this, to make it so it's not, I have to get out of this. I think it's a combination of not disliking what we're doing. Like we still enjoy it, and we still enjoy our business life and, doing what we're doing business wise. And then also the people that have come along with us on this business journey and what they do for us, and hopefully be able to pass it along to them as well.
It's, I enjoy everything. I just don't want to do it all the time. So having the balance where you can do it sometimes, but not constantly all the time, every minute, where you're really stressed out, just kind of finding a better work-life balance, I guess. And like Scott said, it's been a slow process. So we just weren't in a place where we could say, okay, we're done, we're leaving. We want to just slowly step back a little bit at a time, so we make sure things keep running smoothly and that everything's continuing to go well. And financially, having a boat is expensive. And so when things break and stuff goes badly, you're still working it, you can recover from that. Like if you have to put many thousands of dollars into it, all of a sudden it's like, okay, that's not the end of the world, because we're still generating income.
And we said that many times, like, oh, we got to do this to the boat. Well, at least we're still working.
Yeah, at least this is happening.
At least we're still.
It makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference it makes a huge difference in the mindset around it. Even, from my own personal experience, because I cruised and we had no income. We did sell stuff, and there was like a defined pile of cash. And it's a big difference in the mindset to have the income coming in to support the lifestyle that you want to live versus living it off of a defined. They both work, but it's just a different approach. That's super cool. I what I hear, and I think what you guys said is, particularly you, Scott, was legacy. There's this legacy to what you've created, and you want to hand that down, which I think to me goes back to this thing that I find super cool about what you guys have done, is there's this deeper purpose. You've got this work stuff that provides purpose, and then this balance of the adventure over here, and it's not all of one or all of the other. You've somehow struck a balance, which is amazing to me, because I don't operate so much that way. I'm trying. I tend to operate in like all in or all into something else. Cruised full time for 6 years, and then started this business and built it into something where I don't have time to go cruising anymore, except with friends at this point in time. So it's inspiring to me. That's like, oh, maybe there is some balance here that you can find in your life, Chris.
Starlink is the ticket, because you can work from anywhere, so you can go.
100%. Starlink is the ticket. And I was, from Miami, I went out with Martin we went to Vancouver after Miami, and then I went out with Martin and Hildren for almost a month on their boat, and then with Jeff and Val for a week, and it was, things were still, nobody died, everything operated okay, in fact, in a lot of ways it was even better. So yeah, no, it's on my radar, believe me, it's definitely on the radar to do it. So again, we had a great time. It's good for the family too, to get out and go cruising again.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So tell me, like, overall, and this question is a bit different. I mean, because again, a lot of people we talk to, they've completely changed from the way they were living, and now they're living this cruising life. And you guys kind of have this balance. So what I'm curious about is, like, how has, buying a boat and then spending this time cruising and doing this, living this adventure, like, overall, what's the impact it's had on your life?
Well, I think it's taught us to slow down, because when you're in the mix of being in the city and running your businesses, you're just living on fast forward all the time, one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And then you get out in the ocean, and it just, I think, forces you to slow down, enjoy moments instead of always thinking about what's coming next, what's next. You kind of just, take it in and slow down. I think that's been really good. And then also really appreciating it a lot. Like when I would have to go back and work, again, I enjoy my job. I really love what I do, but like going back into the city, and there's construction in our neighborhood, and there's orange cones everywhere, and there's big equipment, and there's piles of materials and rocks, and there's beeping, backing up at 5 a.m. That was like reality check. I thought, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get back on the boat. Like I was really ready to get back on the boat out of the city. And it just really makes you appreciate those moments where you're out there and the sun is setting and it's so beautiful and peaceful. And I think it's, and then if you're getting frustrated with all this stuff breaking and being irritated about stuff on the boat, well, then you go back to that and you think, oh, well, boat life is really not that bad. It's quite wonderful.
It's not so bad. Yeah. Cool. It's amazing.
She used to call me every morning. Every morning on the way to work, she'd call me, and I'd be like, how you doing? I couldn't sleep last night. There's way too much traffic noise. There's sirens going off. She's like, I couldn't sleep. So
I find it fascinating. I mean, even now I'm in Bali, and it's not quite the same as a North American city. There's other stuff going on, but I find it amazing how adaptive we are as humans. You can put yourself in that environment in a city like that, and within weeks you're like, oh, this is normal, and that whole piece that you were used to on the boat is just forgotten somehow, at least for me, like, oh, this is normal now, this stuff that used to really annoy me in 3 weeks, oh, that's normal, it's just part of my daily routine. And so I love that in the contrast between the two things you guys have, this stark contrast. I think it's super cool. So Scott, what about for you?
Well, so Carter said it has taught us to slow down. I would say more it forced us to slow down. Because sailing is really slow. I mean, and I say that in a good way, I guess, but sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, can we just get there already? And that's something that, so our boat's name is named Imagine. And that's something Imagine is forcing me to do, is slow down and go at her speed and enjoy things, more. So I don't know that she's taught me that yet, but I'm getting there. And that's one thing that I think has been huge is, I kept on notes on my phone, little things like, and it was like things that Imagine teaches me. And I write them down every now and then. Like I put them in my phone every now and then because she teaches me a lot. And that was a huge reason why we bought the boat a little earlier before we were ready to go, because we wanted to learn her a little bit and just take her out in the Galveston Bay in different situations and, sail her and know what was going on before we just took off.
Yeah.
There's nothing like learning how to sail around a 900-foot container ship.
Yeah.
And then once you get out into the Gulf and there's nothing around, it seems super easy, But I would definitely. She's definitely teaching me a lot of things.
Cool. I hope you publish those somewhere. I bet you a lot of people would learn from those too.
I don't know if you want to see some of them, Chris.
I'd love to read them.
Some of them would be funny. Some of them are probably not for publishment.
Okay, fair enough. You can curate them and edit them down, but but I get it. I mean, I totally get it. I love it. I think it's Keith and I have said before around this, I think for me, if I look at like my whole decision to go cruising and, who I was before, I was somebody different afterwards. And it's like on a certain level, there's a spiritual experience to this whole thing where you're confronted. You say the boat is teaching you things, it is, but really you're confronting yourself to some degrees, and the boat is just putting you in that position to actually look and be like, hey, this is something you may want to have a look at. So I really do think that's, again, this comes to this idea of the change, right? Of changing and living in a different way is there's growth that has to happen through that. And some people either get into that and it happens, or other people don't. And then they go back to whatever it was they were doing before. So, I think that's cool. There's a lot of really good stuff in there, what you guys both shared around that. And I resonate.
Well, and we met a lot of people sailing like on the Gulf and in the Keys and everything that had been doing it for years and years and years. Through like the Keys and to the Bahamas and, that kind of thing. Way more experience than what we have. And then they're like, so, how'd you get here from Texas? And we're like, yeah, we just sailed across the Gulf. And they're like, what? And we're like, yeah, we just went from Texas to Key West or whatever. And they're like, wow, you guys are crazy. And the thing is, and I think, I don't want to speak for Cara, but I don't know. There's sometimes on a night watch, 200 miles offshore or wherever you are, and you're just hanging out, and it's undescribable.
Yeah,
it's really hard to like. Some people think it's absolutely crazy, and then for me, it's like, man, this is nice. I mean, you have things to worry about, but a good night watch and, out in the middle of nowhere is pretty fantastic.
I know exactly what you're talking about. There's like some of the best moments of my life that I could tell you about are on those night watches in the middle of the ocean. Some of the best moments ever. So I think it's the other way around. I think those guys are crazy for not trying it. That's literally what I honestly do. I think that, people say, oh, you're crazy to go. No, like those guys are nuts for not trying it. Like, why not try it? I don't know. That's that's what I think. So you're so bang on though. I mean, when you started sharing that, I go back to when I had those experiences, and it's just, that's amazing stuff. So kind of maybe to wrap up, I'd like to ask everybody this is, there's a bunch of people obviously that listen to this. Oh, well, I don't know. I like to think there's a bunch of people that listen to it. I don't know how many people actually do. And they're listening to it, a lot of them with the idea of wanting to go cruising. wanting to go in some form or fashion, do what you guys have done now, buy a boat and get out there and go for a cruise. What, if there was one thing that you could share with them around, something around like getting ready to go and do this or whatever, what would be the one lesson or piece of advice or something that you would have for those people that are listening around your experience?
I guess I would say my piece of advice is try it. Take advantage of the Bluewater Cruising adventure and get out there. Go cruising with a family or a couple that's actually living on their boat, currently cruising, and you just will learn so much. It's completely different than if you just charter a boat in the BVI and spend a week on vacation. That's amazing and that's wonderful and you're going to learn some stuff. But I think we learned so much. This was prior to Bluewater Cruising Adventures, but we just got really lucky that we had
super lucky.
We were doing a volunteer eye clinic, and we asked the instructors that we took some of our cruising classes from if they knew anybody sailing in that area, and just so happened they had friends sailing in Vanuatu. And so we were actually able to get on their boat and spend a week with them in Vanuatu, which was
amazing,
mind-blowing.
And it was, Chris, it was a really crappy 54-foot oyster.
Yeah. A 54-foot oyster.
Yeah. So it was a beautiful boat, but it also taught us that we 100% wanted a catamaran, not a monohull, because then you're in a rolling anchorage in a monohull. But that was one thing we learned. But we've learned so much from them, and we still talk about stuff now, years later, that we learned from them. And I just think if you can get that opportunity and try it and make sure that the lifestyle is for you, and get on a boat with somebody that is currently cruising on their boat, you're going to learn so much. I love
that. And just for clarity, go ahead, Scott. Go ahead.
No, and I think the biggest thing is we learned, like, we still talk about stuff that happened on that boat because their names are Ian and Cindy, and they were so awesome, and we're still very good friends with her. Mm-hmm. But he was like, he knew what we wanted to do, and this is when we were green, like we were still taking our classes.
We had just finished.
We just finished taking our ASA classes, which for us was a great way to get into sailing. But we had just finished taking them, so he knew. So he literally took us out for a couple of days and did everything. And then the third day or so, he's like, "All right, it's your boat, go for it," And they were both amazing captains because they were both captains. Mm-hmm. And we just learned so, and it was real. Like, the experience was real. It wasn't, it wasn't a chartered thing. So. Yeah.
I love that. I love it. And that's, to what you said, Cara, it's this Bluewater Cruising Adventures thing that we started. That's exactly what that was the motivation behind it, was so that people that come through any of our programs can get out on a boat. And a lot of what you said has happened. I think they get on boats with graduates of the program that are out cruising, and then they develop long-term relationships with them and with other people in the community. And it's like, that's the stuff that supports you as you get going. It's those relationships. So it's rad that you guys were able to get that. And Vanuatu is like one of the coolest places in the world. It's so amazing.
Yes.
Where were you in Vanuatu?
So we started in Tana, so we got to do the volcano and everything. And it's just insane. There's stuff shooting up on you. There's no guardrail. People fall in there, I think, once a year somebody dies. But it was mind-blowing. And the water is crystal clear. We got to do, it was just fantastic.
Cool. Yeah, Tana's a special place. We sailed. Yeah. I've sailed every single island in Vanuatu, actually, all the way up through the banks and then the top as well. Like, it's one of the favorite places I've ever been. I would go back in a heartbeat. Amazing country, amazing people. They were, I don't know if they still are, but they were multiple years in a row the number one, like the happiest people in the world based on the World Happiness Index, this thing that they do, the people of Vanuatu. And I don't know if it still is, but like while we were cruising around that area, I remember looking that up, and it was, my theory behind this is it's their connection to their culture and this whole thing they call custom there, which is their like historic roots and their connection to that. I think is what, you know, keeps it's a very, very strong culture. And we were there when we were there for the National Custom Festival in Luganville. No, not in Luganville. It was just south of Luganville. I forget the name of the island now, but people from all of the different island groups came in. I did a YouTube video around it, actually. People from all the different island groups come in, and they all had their own like tribal wear, these crazy unreal costumes, but then they all did their own like dance and whatever it was that they did and played. It was like one of the coolest things I've ever seen. So if you're ever back there and you have a chance to check that out, they do it every 4 years, I think. So
Cool.
Yeah, super cool. Very, very cool country. Anyway, could go on forever about it. I love it. So yeah, well that was a really good, two really good things, there, to wrap us up. I kind of went on about Vanuatu for a while there, but any last thoughts that you guys, want to share before we wrap up?
You know, I guess I would say too, as far as when you like getting ready to go, I don't feel like you have to sell everything you own to go do this. And I know that some people do, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like, you know, we just in our times that we've been out, we've met people from all sorts of different walks of life with all sorts of different boats, you know, and they're just out there making it happen. And some of them have been sailing for 30 years, between like from Pensacola down to the Keys over to the Bahamas and back, you know, and that's what they do. But they've been doing it for a long time, and that's what they love, and they know everywhere they're going to go. They know where they're going to stay. They know all the restaurants they want to go to, and they have a blast doing it. And they were awesome people that we met. So I guess my recommendation would be, don't, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing. You don't have to go and live on a boat for all year long. You can go live on a boat for 3 months if you want to, and only cruise and do coastal cruising where you're comfortable. Like, you don't have to cross oceans to do this and get what you want out of a lifestyle. And I think there's a little bit of a misconception there that, you have to go so far and you have to do this. I would say do it sooner than later, and do what your means can give you to do, what you can do, versus saving up for that perfect situation or that perfect boat. Or, we met people with boats way nicer than ours, and we met people with boats that were way less than ours, but they also had the same view.
They're doing the same thing.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to, think outside the box. Like we said, we wouldn't necessarily be able to do this right now full time without still working. And, we have our house in a short-term rental when we're not there. So somebody's, paying for that. And, we've just kind of tried different things, and you can do this even if you don't feel like you're quite financially ready. Maybe you can make it happen if you're not afraid to try things differently.
I love it. And I think, the big piece of advice that stands out there, it was all amazing, is just do it. Like, that's like, just try it. And I think everything that you said though is, and I run into this all the time, is it's like, it's too big for people often. Like, in their head. You know, it's this like, oh, I have to go and live on the boat, and it means that I'm gonna go. You know, I hear this a lot. I'm gonna do a lap around the world, and it's like like first of all, often, and I mean this with respect, like you don't know what that means, you know, until you really start. You have no idea the context of what's involved, and like, yeah, I want to sail around the world. Like that's a massively huge undertaking. And it's so big that it's like, I think sometimes people even tell themselves that because they're like afraid of actually doing it. So it's so big. They're like, okay, I just don't have to do it because it's so big. Whereas what you said, if you start small, anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. You know, find, like you said, within your means, coastal cruising, it's the lifestyle to me. It's like, what's the lifestyle that you want to create? And I love it. I love everything that you guys said. And I think you're a great example of people that did it, you know, and you didn't do it in I'm going to go and sell everything and live on a boat the way that, again, I mean, a lot of YouTube is like that, right? Oh, these people live on the boat, look at them, and they support themselves with their YouTube channel. And I mean, I have lots of friends that run YouTube channels, nothing against them, but like, that's a very small percentage of people that are out living on the water in some form or fashion, living this lifestyle. And to base somebody's dream around that, I think, is a mistake. You know, they need to look at how can they do it themselves. So, yeah. And I love that you guys did it. So thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you for those of you that listened, for listening to this episode of the Bluewater Cruising podcast. It's been a real pleasure and a privilege to have both Scott and Kara here. Thank you guys for taking the time out of your evening. I know it's late where you are too. Thanks for taking the time to hang out and share a bit of your story. I know there's people out there that are going to have got a lot out of that. And I'm sure that you'll have inspired some people to take some action and change their life in some small way. So thank you again for hanging out with me.
Yeah. Thanks for having us, Chris.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, guys. So for everybody that was tuning in, this is the end of this episode of the Bluewater Cruising podcast. We'll be back next month. Nothing on the agenda yet. I'm sure it's going to be something cool and exciting. If you guys are interested in getting started cruising, check out our website, bluewatercruising.com. We've got a free workshop that you can check out that'll give you some tools and resources to get yourself started. And at any time, if you ever want, book in for a 15-minute compass call with us. And we're happy to have a look at your plans, your dreams, and sense check them for you and hopefully give you some ideas on how you can get the ball rolling and end up one day, hopefully soon, like Scott and Kara, and get out cruising. So thanks again, guys. Great to be here, and we'll see you guys all next time. Take care.
Thank you.